What did you want to be, but what did you end up as?
Missandei22 says growing up I wanted to be Wonder Woman, and save the world. I ended up being a nurse.
Rebel Sue says I wanted to be a famous musician. Instead I am a biology grad student and I play in a jam band for fun and gas money. I am actually happier the second way, I think. I have friends who are still trying to be famous in music and it sounds like it fucking sucks to play that game. I can pay my bills, and I have much more creative freedom in what songs I write and perform, and I am able to get old and put on a little weight as a woman and still get gigs.
Adam Akimbo says I wanted to be happy and I ended up an accountant, so not going well.
Information says 1. Frog, age 2 wish 2. Software engineer, gotta survive. Leave on your light says artist. Drug addict. Classic.
Tur2 says wanted to be a comic book illustrator, ended up being a child sexual abuse counselor.
Kelly Boylston 57 says always dreamed about writing a novel. At 60, doing it.
MorDC00 says according to my parents, when I was very young I said I wanted to be a turtle when I grew up. As a teen I just wanted to be a stable, functional adult. I fell well short of both goals, but if I'm being completely honest I'm probably closer to being a turtle. Adanips says famous artist, became a scientist.
HGS56 says married, with children. Still single.
Zappa-D3 says wanted to be a cameraman, ended up a doorman.
Jolly Green Grippler says marine biologist, ended up as a bouncer martial arts instructor.
Onomanopia says wanted to be a behavioral psychologist, a waitress.
ALBARTROS98 says medical doctor. Currently doing my PhD in virology. Jaugnit says an unknown travel writer who barely scraped by but could travel the world and write. Cable guy, which I love.
West of Center says I wanted to be retired. Never quite understood why people defined themselves by their job. 29 years later and I achieved my goal. It took a lot of work, some sacrifices and a bit of luck, but I own my home and only do what I want. And it's mainly voluntary work. Andromeda 321 says I have never wanted to be anything but an astronomer since I was 13 and read a book on the subject. I submitted my PhD a month ago and am starting an amazing research postdoc in the field this fall. Still can't believe it.
Diayolf 202 says mathematician broke and bored mathematician.
Newserpeogle says I wanted to be a good person, but I ended up as a coward.
Ania Neil Sidaprist says I wanted to be a star but I'm a janitor. It's not too bad I don't have paparazzi, just pooparazzi.
Bobbit Worm King Tricks says not me.
Faraday says wanted to be a rockstar, ended up as an English teacher.
Mavink says when I was a little kid I had two dream jobs, either road worker or mowing grass, especially the latter one. Our city employed people that got to drive around on these cool mowing machines all day. I ended up working in IT, and I haven't regretted that decision once. I still want to someday, but a house with a lawn big enough to justify buying one of those cool sit-in lawn mowers, but there's no way I'll be paving my own driveway.
Tara Wood says I wanted to be a doctor, but instead I'm a crew leader for a conservation group. I figured if 5 years as an EMT, and 2 as a medical technologist, burned me out on medicine that maybe trying to go to med school was not a great idea.
Hoods_77 says forensic pathologist, in school for water and wastewater treatment but switching in the upcoming fall. Maynard J222 says wanted to be a ninja turtle. I'm a software engineer. I'm still not a turtle. And even further from being a ninja.
Fiercest Bear says wanted to be a herpetologist, reptile amphibian biologist, but now I'm on track to be living out of a van.
Thoughts from the Crypt says I didn't want to be anything, so now I am nothing.
Sleepy Hollow 101 says I wanted to be a spy. I'm a research assistant and I write fiction in my free time. Missed the mark on that one.
Untakinu says I wanted to be an astronaut. After being told the world doesn't want astronauts anymore by my dad, I've ended up bitter towards him.
Tony Montana 1980 says doctor, I'm studying microbiology now.
Fela Clock says as a kid I wanted to become a zookeeper. Now I am a job coach and help people find work. Sometimes my group is like a zoo.
Lois Wayne 36 says I wanted to be a paleontologist, but I ended up a big fat loser and disappointment to my parents.
Adam Rocks 84 says wanted to be cool, became lame.
Vayman M says an actor. A delivery driver. Neutral face.
Aldo says wanted to do something in computer science. Ended up having a career in construction.
Stormsleeper says wanted to be mentally stable, ended up crazy off my ass.
Gumblehonib says an artist, now a receptionist, and I don't think it's many little girls' dreams to be a receptionist. Pam Beasley.
Aurelius CM says professor, ended up a software engineering manager.
Dirty Moni says nothing, and nothing.
Dubasista says wanted to be a professional ballerina. I am now a copywriter for a sex toy company.
Blue says I wanted to be a wildlife biologist, ended up as a scientist working in animal genetics, so not too far off.
Nithervex says as a kid I hate this innate fear of not enjoying life. I wanted to make sure I didn't grow up to be sad and miss out on the stuff I liked as a kid. I saw people who just looked like zombies and hated their jobs. But mostly I saw they didn't have time for video games or playing outside. LOL. I was super worried about after I finished school because I legitimately thought I would have to stop being happy, so as an adult I guess that childish fear worked out. Because I enjoy my job, married a woman I thoroughly enjoy life with, I work a job I enjoy and want to be at, and make sure to take trips and enjoy video games on my time off. I guess it worked out, just not the way I thought.
Trainer Max 78 says I wanted to be a temporary part-time library's Northwest Interlibrary Loan Business Unit Administration Assistant, but sadly I became a prostitute instead. Alundra 828 says I wanted to do something in computers, and here I am as a software developer. It's going pretty good so far. Bang. Lots of people assume I wanted to develop video games, but to be honest, I've never felt much of a drive to develop a video game. Maybe it will change one day, but currently I like my current work in just developing automation solutions or software solutions to problems that are handed down to me. It's gratifying, challenging and quite rewarding work.
Dovak says never really had a direction growing up. Ended up working for a hospital doing the easiest job I ever had, getting paid nearly double what I did previously. Work less hours because I'm still part-time, but still make about the same as before and have full medical benefits. Can't complain.
OG Squeaks says wanted to be an 11B infantryman, ended up in Peace Corps.
Andreller says I wanted to be an archaeologist, now I'm a shop assistant. I love my job, and that isn't sarcasm.
Celtic Roses says wanted to train horses in rural West Virginia. I am a nurse in NC. Go figure.
A song before says I like questions that everyone can relate to. I wanted to be many things. A chef. As a little kid, I used to be fascinated with cooking even though I didn't eat much. Still true to a degree. Make YouTube videos. Wasn't profitable at the time. Graphic designer. Add something for business cards and company logos. Lol. Music producer. This was a turning point for me around 5 years ago after I realized how creative one can be with anything. And since then I've wanted to be a production designer, which got me into filmmaking and later VR. I wanted to combine the two but I never held on to one thing. Hell, at one point I wanted to be a flight attendant, because I thought I'd have a lot of free time to do different things, and I like traveling.
Paladin 400 says when I was a kid I wanted to be a doctor like both my parents. I was also a huge fan of medical shows like House and Scrubs, still am. I was a fairly good student, liked dealing with people and didn't mind the sight of blood. I realized, however, that biology and pretty much all science-related courses were the bane of my existence. You could have a teacher speak for 2 hours straight and I wouldn't remember what he was even talking about. It's not necessarily because it's hard. I just find it so fucking boring even nowadays. When someone speaks to me about anything remotely related to science, I'll be like, sorry, gonna have to stop you there. I don't know shit about this, talk about something else. I'm studying humanities for a reason.
Ilonov says archaeologist. I'm a team leader now.
Bri Hidalgo says I wanted to be an explorer. Yes, like Dora the Explorer. I'm a nurse working in a pharmaceutical company now. At least I can go out and explore my neighborhood on the weekend.
Nanan00 says biomechanics engineer focused on limb replacement and building cyborgs, mechanical engineer that designs oil and chemical refinery equipment. And why didn't I go on to doing what I wanted? Few reasons. Most, I wish I had just powered through, but talking to some people in the field really turned me off. My ME is from a top-ranked school and I had already completed one semester of pre-med at another top-ranked school when I was just burnt from all that was going on.
Baron Blackbird says successful not so much, still trying. Big McFly says my silly kid dream job was to be a mountain climber, but we didn't have any mountains in my area and none of the local area businesses had a listing for a mountain climbing position, so that didn't work out. I wanted to be a carpenter when I was in high school because I loved working with my hands and doing creative things, and I was fascinated with construction. I ended up being a custom cabinet maker woodworker for 13 years. I managed to seg from that to being a programmer, which is what I am doing currently.
MRBENTER 1987 says marine biologist live in a landlocked state and work in a concrete building. Confident somewhere says I wanted to be something. Anything really. Instead I ended up a dropout with such crippling anxiety that a good day is one in which I'm able to walk out my front door without collapsing into a sobbing, incoherent mess.
JJVVKK says I wanted to be a pilot. I am a doctor now.
Cautious Intone says I wanted to be a professional dancer but ended up being an engineer.
Hammered Wolf says wanted to be a dad, ended up an uncle, both disappointed and not, somehow.
Night of Iron Fist says wanted to be an artist. Ended up as a software engineer DB admin. Planning on getting back into art though and eventually turn it into side money.
Losseruser 1201 says as a child, I wanted nothing more than to be an author and share my mind and imagination with the world. I would write for hours every single day, dreaming about the awards I'd receive for my stories. Now, I work at Pizza Hut for HR and am lucky if I write 2 sentences in a month.
Fan 556 says I wanted to be dead but I ended up depressed.
Melissa says I wanted to be a zookeeper and an author. Now, I do marketing for a dog hotel and write in my own time.
BA 1100N says I wanted to be a mechanic and a marine. I'm now a pissed off mechanic and about to join the Marines. Hopefully it goes well.
Phil 1905 says wanted to be a mechanic, became a used car salesman.
Mandinga Dog says a famous guitarist, porn star, Jimmy Big Ball C, professional juggler, drug lord, gynecologist, ended up as an EE.
Hi Father YT says I'm still young.
Gamaplan 123 says a singer then, an artist now, not my daytime job.
Awkward Punk says I wanted to be a publisher, but ended up as an entry-level broker.
Nimrod 1109 says wanted to be a firefighter. Currently work for a PTR hail shop. I actually love it. It gives me a ton of freedom to do what I want. I worked emergency response hazmat for a few years. It really burned me out and ended up messing with my head pretty good.
Dade Rankin says like many guys when they're young, I wanted to be a professional athlete. I ended up working in administration for a college.
Erin 17 says I wanted to be a gardener in kindergarten, and then about everything in between from them to college. Right now I'm pretty sure I'm sticking to actuarial science for my degree. I love numbers, graphs, charts, analysis, all that stuff, and it pays phenomenally. I didn't really want to turn my hobby into a job because I was afraid I would just end up resenting it because it's work and pays a lot less. Figured I would do something steady that is interesting to me so that I will be able to finance my hobbies. Down the road, I may end up transitioning to something I am more passionate about if I feel financially stable enough to do so.
Graniel says I wanted to be loved but instead I'm a failure.
Pathfinder 365 says I wanted to be a vet, then a naval aviator. Didn't get the grades for the former, actually got to officer training after passing all the entry tests for the latter, but made the mistake of trying to keep my fiancée happy, so they thought I was taking training seriously and I got dropped. Then she broke up with me 6 months later and now I'm a manufacturing engineer trying to find a job after the end of my last contract.
Pinky 93 says as a child I wanted to be a vet, or a mermaid. As a teenager I wanted to be an archaeologist. Now I'm a homemaker. _LF Krebs_ says don't know what I want to be, also don't know what I'll end up as. Feels Batman.
Duct Tape Dildo says, well, hey, that's great. May not have been the original goal, but as long as you like it, then that's good. I hope you have a nice rest of your life, my guy.
Ranch King 91 says, I wanted to be an astronaut. Ended up an unemployed alcoholic who still lives with his parents. I think I had an attention disorder in school because I just could not focus on any subject for too long before I started chatting with my friend.
Emma Facet says, I never knew what I wanted to be, so I became an old fart.
Fury Quaker says, I wanted to become a minister and got a bachelor's and master's in theology. I ended up working with communication in a union instead. Love my job.
Junior Sociopath says, I wanted to be an international drifter. I'm now a tour director and spend much of the year on the road for work and pleasure. Soon, I won't actually live anywhere. I'll just work for a few months and then bounce from one cheap county to another until it's time to work again.
Light Up Mug says, I wanted to be an artist. I'm a junior data analyst. I don't like numbers, never been good with them, but now I face them every day and it depresses me.
DRAGONOID 296 says, medical doctor. Now I'm a college dropout pursuing a certificate course in programming.
Tunable 25 says, I wanted to go to Duke University and be a vet. Now taking one college class at a community college and working 40 plus hours a week doing various aquatics related jobs.
Village Idiot says, wanted to be a pilot, but lack of money made me drop out of college, and now I am a broke factory worker.
Lepaku says, I wanted to be a farmer. I ended up as a payroll specialist.
Teeth Viscera says, I was so into wanting to be a lawyer as a child I loved arguing. I'm now a vet in training.
Red Collar 15 says, I wanted to be a singer. I currently have a desk job helping feed the hungry. I'm happy with it.
Earthweedenfi says, I watched a lot of Desperate Housewives with my mom growing up and wanted to be a trophy wife. I'm now a normal stay-at-home wife that grows medical cannabis, LOL.
Ninjasin says, elementary school teacher and GT, library clerk.
Demetria Perez says, I wanted to be a game developer since I was a kid, and I did get to be it. For a while, I lived in a desert town in the US-Mexico border. It was horrible, low pay, lots of work. I loved my job, but I lived in a roach-infested apartment and rent was too high for how shitty the area was. I am now working on achieving the same dream, but with a higher standard of living.
Sis Columbia says, wanted to be a professional soccer player, ended up working in finance and accounting. I hate my job and my career.
Inistja says, in the WNBA, an engineer.
Plus Cryptographer says, gamer. Rich. Now I'm learning to make software games. It's okay.
1402198 says, when I was a kid I wanted to be a cat burglar, using zip lines and suction cups to scale tall buildings to get those priceless diamonds hiding in a well-secured vault. I now work in IT.
Latitude says, I wanted to be a bodybuilder but colitis makes it nearly impossible to put on weight since digesting is a pain, so no, I am a parking enforcement officer instead.
Roman Princess says, wanted to be committed and married to the man I was with for 4+ years. Now I'm single. So yeah, not great.
Daviska says, me, you.
Zapati3 replies, scared.
Midnight Moon 29 says, I wanted to be a Japanese language interpreter. I ended up working in a small medical office.
Poison Strumpet says, Liaise wanted to be a helicopter pilot or marine biologist, but I'm stuck in a dead-end office job. Stiggs says, I wanted to be a lot of things. I became none of them.
Zapati3 replies, insightful.
Slacker says, wanted to be a zookeeper. Was a zookeeper. Didn't want to be a zookeeper. Ended up as a science teacher.
Vic the Maddest Wife says, I wanted to be a teacher. Had my first child halfway through my teaching degree. Realized that I don't particularly like other people's children. Now I'm a midwife. Hey, I can deal with screaming women, just not with screaming children.
Mountain Sprouts says, I wanted to be a marine biologist and now I'm in school for geology. A big part of it is that I found out I'm afraid of the ocean.
Ginger Isla says, growing up I wanted to be a journalist. Ended up working with an insurance company for 6 months after graduating. Decided I didn't want to compromise anymore and to pursue my career. I'm starting my new job as a journalist tomorrow.
Kitty Tank says I wanted to be a pastry chef. Now I work as a teacher assistant in the special ed department of a high school. I also ended up making video game themed cookbooks as one of the artists on the sous chef. I think things worked out pretty okay.
Simply even says I want to be a musician, currently a host. At 15 I still have a few years to get there.
Zappity3 replies plenty of time left.
Vanilla Life 101 says I wanted to be a middle school teacher. I run my own group home for disabled adults.